For centuries, archaeologists searched in vain for the geographical location of Homer's Troy. Then in the 19th century, a German historian set out to find Troy using the Iliad as a compass. What Heinrich Schliemann discovered was to astound the Western world.
Schliemann and his predecessors read the Iliad almost as a code. They were searching for clues for the real historical site of Troy.
Schliemann identified one particular mound in northwestern Asia Minor and set about investigating it, excavating it, and struck lucky.
Schliemann travelled to Turkey, to the area around Hissarlik. He thought that he would find Troy there. Having negotiated with 2 Turkish businessmen who owned the land surrounding a particular fort mound, Schliemann started digging. He began to uncover the remains of a great city. He knew he'd discovered something extraordinary. Troy was right beneath his feet.
We agree that he was right. He did find the site of Troy.
In 1874, Heinrich Schliemann discovered a large cache of gold and silver. It's the richest single find to date. He called it Priam's treasure because he believed it to be the king of Troy's gold, buried at the time of the Trojan Wars. Over 100 years later, some of the world's leading archaeologists are still trying to unravel the reality behind the myth of Troy.
In the late Bronze Age, we estimate that in the order of 5,000 to 10,000 people may have lived here.
Ernst Pernicka's team continued to piece together evidence indicating that Troy was inhabited by a wealthy and warlike people. Remarkably, archaeologists have also uncovered new evidence that suggests that siege warfare could well have taken place there.
We have a few arrowheads, like this one here, indicating warfare. We do not know why we have so few, but maybe they have been collected again because bronze was still a very valuable material.
It's incredible to think that these finds may have been used in the siege of Troy. There are other tantalizing clues to suggest that this may have been the site of a major battle.
An interesting fact is these pebbles, river pebbles, they were collected and brought up on the hill. They are usually interpreted as slingshots. It is the more likely because we have similar pebbles made of burnt pottery, burnt clay.
The fact that a large number of slingshots has been found at the site leads experts to believe that a surprise attack may have left the occupants with no time to use them to repel the enemy.
Another interesting feature that may have to do with warfare are these polished stones. They have a hole in the middle. They can serve as an end piece on a chariot.
But from these fragments, is it possible to deduce what armor and weaponry they would have used in hand-to-hand combat? At the time of the siege of Troy, heroic individual combat played an integral part in deciding the outcome of a conflict. King Agamemnon brought along an elite force of fighters that struck fear into all who faced them. They were led by one of the finest warriors in the ancient world, Achilles.
It happens to contain the passage describing Achilles and his myrmidons, and one can even see the name Achilles, Achilleus in Greek.
The greatest battle of the Iliad tells of a showdown between Hector, the foremost Trojan champion, and Achilles. Their duel was to be one of the defining moments in 10 years of brutal conflict.
Ordinary soldiers moving in close with their short swords would have been a rough and dirty business, whereas the duels that Homer describes in his poem, these are more idealized, perhaps almost ritual combat. When the Greek hero Achilles was eventually provoked into fighting with Hector, the Trojan champion, they met on the plain outside Troy. It was the custom to throw spears, first of all. Neither spear found its target. So Hector moved in with his sword to finish the thing. By this time, Achilles had retrieved his spear and thrust it through Hector's throat.
Warriors like Hector and Achilles would have been brought to the battlefield by the first great war machine of the ancient world, the chariot.
This was a culture that prided valor in man-to-man combat, looking at the whites of the eyes. The reality of fighting hand-to-hand is you not only had to be incredibly fit, you had to have incredible stamina. It's the same with a sword cut. If you're going to take a man's arm off, then the amount of power in a stroke like that is exhausting.
The style of fighting between Hector and Achilles was similar to the battles of the gladiators at the height of the Roman Empire. This meant that the chariot at the time of the Trojan War was used in a very specific way.
The chariots were used, therefore, as battlefield taxis, not just to drop the warrior off, but also to relieve him. There they are in front of their colleagues, winning fame and glory before one and all. But as they tire, their buddy comes in. He comes in, he jumps off, takes the man on they're going to take, and they make their getaway.
3,000 years ago, a revolution in weaponry saw lethal new armaments constructed on an industrial scale. This posed an immense challenge to King Agamemnon's military engineers. Could they develop armor that would prevent mass casualties outside the walls of Troy?
Don Wildman likes to get to the bottom of things.
What we see up here hardly tells the whole story. It's down there where the scars of the city can be found.
For him, the deeper...
This is big civil engineering.
Darker...
Can you see these bats?
And more dangerous.
Look at this. The whole tunnel has collapsed right here.
The better.
Oh, that is really creepy.
Cities of the Underworld continues. Fridays at 8 on History HD.
Something very strange is happening on this planet.
What if human evolution was manipulated?
There are things out there we do not understand.
What if aliens really did help shape our history?
Our past is way different than what we're being taught.
A theory some believe cannot be true, but many agree cannot be ignored.
It leaves you feeling a little nervous.
History brings you a new startling series, Ancient Aliens, starts Saturday at 8 on History HD.
I know every corner on that road. What I don't know is what's around that next corner. It could be a near-death experience. Roll down the window, listen to the ice cracking.
Driving on ice is nerve-wracking.
The last guy that went down was dead in 18 seconds. This road's the biggest nightmare of them all.
Been well over 100 below zero with the wind chill factor.
It's miserable. It's cold. Real cold.
There's a nightmare around every corner out here.
Mother Nature has a mind of its own.
It's a good chance you're going to die.
The biggest part of living is dying.
An all-new series of Ice Road Truckers, Mondays at 8 on History HD, made every day.
King Agamemnon's army had made an epic journey across the Aegean Sea to the very gates of Troy. Faced with near impregnable defenses, they began a siege that was to last a decade. But how did they survive in the open, brutally exposed to all that the Trojans could hurl down at them? Combining archaeological evidence with clues from Homer's Iliad, experts are now deducing what weapons and armor the ancient Greeks used in battle.
The most distinctive element of the equipment I'm carrying is probably the helmet. This particular one represents the final evolution of this style of helmet, which is a Corinthian. And it's very distinctive because of the very long cheek pieces at the front and closed face, which protects you when you're fighting against the enemy because you would have a big shield across your front.
Greek war engineers manufactured a helmet that maximized the wearer's ability to utilize his critical senses of vision and hearing.
And during the Persian Wars, the ability to give command and control was very important. And with the earlier pattern helmets, that was closed off, so it's like wearing a seashell on your head. All you hear is the sea going round, so people point you at the enemy and give you a big push. Within the later periods, people had to hear what was going on.
In response to the developing arms race, Greek inventors needed to construct armor that could withstand the deadly firepower being used on the battlefield. One innovation used composite materials in order to protect warriors in combat. Incredibly, the armor consisted of a high-density fabric that Greek engineers designed in such a way that it could withstand metal-tipped arrows.
What we've got here is a linothorax, a lin thorax, which is made up of layers of linen glued together. In fact, this one's got 14 layers of linen with a leather core in the middle. It's lighter than metal armour. It moulds itself to your body when it's warm, but it is very, very hard and very, very protective. In many ways, it's akin to modern Kevlar body armour.
A composite bow was used at point-blank range to test the strength of linothorax technology.
That'll hurt. Well, I'm actually quite pleased with that because that was at point-blank range. Remember, this is only cloth that's stopping this arrow. So at a normal combat range, I think that's about the best they could expect for. The fact it punched through, lucky shot.
Despite using a composite bow with a draw weight of 160 pounds hitting at 90 miles an hour, only the tip of the arrow penetrated the armour. Greek war engineers also used composite materials to make shields. In Athens Museum, there is a unique fresco which features a figure-of-8 shield used at the time of the Trojan Wars.
You can see how it covers all of my body. I'm well protected behind this with the disc shape, but the cutouts allow me to use the spear, which is the heroic weapon of the Homeric age. This is the weapon that Achilles is using. Held in here, I've still got movement and can fight while I'm protected.
The reason why the shield was so effective is because of the way it was constructed.
It's light, it's incredibly light, because it's made of wicker, willow, like a basket, tightly packed, tightly woven, very resilient, a little bit of flexibility to absorb impact, but very light and very mobile. With this shoulder strap here, slung on my body, it's no problem at all to fight with, and then a skin of leather just to reinforce that wicker, that willow, but we don't know how tough it's going to be against arrows.
For the first time in nearly 3 millennia, this marvel of ancient technology was put to the test. Even at point-blank range, the arrow failed to penetrate the shield because of its ingenious construction. The clever design would also allow warriors to make running repairs. We now know that the armies of antiquity were equipped with armor that used cutting-edge fiber technology to defend itself against powerful infantry weapons. But there's more. Another recent discovery points to the ancients being well-versed in other advanced technologies. A discovery in 1960 would confirm the true sophistication of ancient Greek metallurgy in weaponry. This rare footage shows an extraordinary find near Mycenae in mainland Greece. Archaeologists uncovered this incredibly well-preserved armor that protected warriors over 3,000 years ago. This highly advanced suit of armor is known as the Dendra Panoply. Even today, it rivals modern armament design.
Originally, it would have had a helmet, shoulder guards, body guard, thigh guards. It would have been incredibly difficult to use. Very heavy, hard to move around.
The Dendra Panoply weighed about 35 pounds and consisted of 15 separate bronze sheets.
The armour used by Homeric heroes was probably quite effective. The Dendra Panoply indicates the power, the strength of this protective equipment.
For maximum protection, the bronze sheets were designed to overlap. They were clamped together by super-strong fibers sewn through holes as small as 2 millimeters in diameter. But how successful would the armor be against the deadly barrage of the Trojans?
Under attack.
Recover your arm!
Ravaged by disease. For a hope of survival.
Indian!
An alliance must be forged.
Welcome.
English.
We desire to trade with you.
Witness the birth of a nation. In the concluding part of Desperate Crossing, next Tuesday at 8 on History HD.
A man who goes to the extreme.
This is the first step of 750.
Following in the footsteps of conquerors and kings.
One of the reasons the Ark may have been brought here is that the island is a natural fortress, and despite 3,000 years of searching, it's never been found.
Exploring the mysteries of ancient history.
All those people, the biggest and brightest stars of ancient Egypt, are buried here.
They were here.
Digging for the Truth. Wednesdays at 8 on History HD.